Back, everyone, to the Unclassified Podcast. I'm Ben Wheeler, joined today with Preston Stewart, as always. And today, we have a huge announcement. Yesterday, I called the tip line. The Department of Justice, they put out a tip line asking for any information about the whereabouts of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. And so, I called the line, and they answered. They said, "Hello, this is Pam Bondi." I said, "Hi, Pam, this is Ben Wheeler." And she said, "Oh, how you doing, honey? What can I do for you?" And I said, "I have information to the whereabouts of Nicolas Maduro. Have you tried looking in Venezuela?" And she said, "We haven't." And so they sent over part of the tip money, but we'll get the rest when they catch him. So we're going to be multimillionaires, so we are very excited about that. $50 million bounty.
I knew holding out and not doing ad reads was beneficial. We can just be fully sponsored by the Rewards for Justice program because they've got a lot up there. I don't know if you ever spend any time perusing it. Public. Yeah, you can just go through. There's a lot of guys. A lot of bad people in there. Yeah, so we can just kind of start moving down that list.
The Ben and Preston bounty hunters. Like Dog the Bounty Hunter, but it's Ben and Preston. You don't want to be a bounty hunter?
No, I just want to provide the tip and get the reward.
We could be tip services, the tipsters, yeah. And I honestly, it's not that bad of an idea. But here's my question: if you can jog your memory back, not to make you feel old, did they ever put out? So here's the part that's so funny to me about the tip line. What do Americans know about the tip line? It's not even like one. It's like an international line. So like people in Venezuela calling are gonna have to pay for the the international phone fare or whatever you call international calling. So my question to you is, did Saddam Hussein or Osama bin Laden or any of those Al-Qaeda guys, did any of them have an American tip line where they appealed to Americans? If you have any information as to their whereabouts, please let us know.
Yeah, terrorists do. I'm trying to pull up the tip line right now.
It's a Washington,
they got
D.C.
success
number.
Stories, reward offers around the world. Let's just dive right into, there we go. Let's get the Middle East and North Africa. There's a lot. So like the leader of Al-Qaeda, AQAP, right now has a $10 million bounty.
Really?
I don't know that Saddam would have made the list.
Yeah, I shouldn't even compare it to Al-Qaeda. It's like asking Americans for tips on Saddam. Like, you know more than us, man.
But yeah, there's a bunch in here, up to $10 million. 50 isn't all that crazy. Oh, that dude looks American.
Do people even get the tip money? Well, I mean, we got the tip money, but do other people get the tip money?
Yeah, of course, we got it. There's success stories in here. They say, since the program was established in 1984, the government has paid out more than $250 million to more than 125 people. So an average of $2 million per tip.
Really?
Wow.
That's not that much. I feel like if I have information on these people, I must be like a nefarious I must be putting my life on the line, right? Because like random dudes, other than us, don't have information on internationally wanted people.
I don't know. We might have to rethink the financing of this operation, but yeah, it's out there. It's operational.
Yeah, we do need to get sponsors. If you guys are listening to this and you're a sponsor and you want to sponsor us, we'll take your money. Well, actually, if the money's there, we don't care.
Wow, that was just
yeah. Yep, the money's there. We don't care. So, anyways, Preston, today we do have actual things to talk about. What is going on in... Actually, I'll let you pick. What is going on in the same two places we've talked about every week now for 40 episodes?
Let's start with Ukraine. We'll shift over to Gaza because overnight it sounds like they do these like marathon sessions with the Security Council in Israel where they break out and they're like, it's been 8 hours. We've been talking for 8 hours through the night, which just sounds awful. Personally, at the end of that time, like I'd make any decision you want. I don't care, like whatever's going to get this thing wrapped up, The decision they made was that they're going to go take and occupy Gaza City. So we'll get into that in a minute. Ukraine has been an up, down, sideways in every direction. The battles on the ground have been pretty consistent. Russia pushing in a couple areas in the east and the south. Pokrovsk, they're making more progress. Kupiansk in the east, largely been stopped around Sumy, but they are pushing a little further west near Zaporizhia, and then in the north around Kharkiv. Nothing major has changed on the ground. Nothing major has changed in terms of long-range strikes.
Yeah, get it out.
the big thing this week has been the back and forth on the diplomatic side. So Trump set this new deadline, right, where he said on the 28th, he said, I know Putin's answer already, so we're going to shorten this. We don't need to wait 50 days. And it looked like that window was like between today and August 10th. And this week, Steve Witkoff, MIA for quite a while, I must say. I feel like he must have gone on vacation or something, because since the end of the Iran 12-day war, I feel like Witkoff has been gone. I don't know the last time I heard anything about it. Like, I don't know what he's doing. Maybe celebrating, ending all these 6 wars that he's ended.
What do you think is going on with those wars? Because now they have the Azerbaijan Armenian one. Do you think they're offering like trade deals or something, or like some kind of bribe?
I mean, I think there's some old-fashioned pressure in some way, shape, or form. That sounds like there was some pressure involved in a couple different. Was it the India-Pakistan one where it sounds like there might have been some pressure exerted on future U.S. trade partnerships? Like, yeah, probably stuff like that. But also, I don't know. We're just calling all of these things like major wars that we stopped, and I'm not entirely sure all of them have stopped. They've mostly been like flare-ups that are probably going to happen again.
Let me wait. So before you move on, let me ask you, pick your brain one more time on this. Do you think December rolls around, he does not get the Nobel Peace Prize? Do we sanction Norway?
Oh, because of that?
Yeah,
because of
because they're going all in. I mean, if he doesn't win, do they sanction Norway?
I don't know a lot about the Nobel Peace Prize process, and I know there's some issues. There's been issues with it in the past. Like, didn't Obama get it because he said he wanted to end a war, but never actually did it?
They gave it to him as like try to get to it, being like, well, if we give him the Peace Prize now, then maybe
the incentive
he will
live up to it.
Yeah, then maybe he won't continue the invasion of everything. Okay. And I would say safe to say.
So clearly there's some issues there. I don't know that you could point to anything quite yet in the Trump administration to say he's going to get this. It's a lot of duct tape patchwork right now. Like, if you hold your breath long enough and you present the thing right now and you close your eyes, it might work. But we are mere moments away in multiple areas of the world from conflict either spiraling into something larger or reigniting. So it's a stretch to say we're in some sort of great time of peace. But nonetheless, the Ukraine piece seemed like it was headed in the right direction. Trump this week did take action that we haven't seen since the war began under either administration. They added tariffs, secondary tariffs onto India for exporting, for refining cheap Russian oil. And that process of buying Russian oil is helping prop up their war machine. I believe that takes India's tariffs to 50%.
Jesus.
Kind of mixed reactions there. On the one hand, I think it's a good direction for us to head in to go after some of Russia's partners and their ability to finance the war. The big elephant in the room, of course, is China. We haven't really done anything there. So I like that. It's trying something different instead of just layering on additional sanctions that, by and large, Russia has found ways to get around or work without. So I like that. At the same time, I don't know if it's going to do anything. It doesn't look quite yet. It's not clear if this is actually going to have any impact. The Indian government has come out and said, look, we're just going to act in our own best self-interest. You can't tell us what to do. We're going to do what is best for us. That might end up being continuing to buy Russian oil and deal with high tariffs in the United States.
I don't think I don't think India knows what's good for them. Which sounds crazy to say, but like, India is in a position to replace China for the entire West, including Europe, America, Australia. They can replace China if they just get with the program here. And they're not interested. They have this like third way anti-colonial mindset, which I understand why, but doesn't mean it's not dumb. So
I mean, I get you in concept, but that's not like one or two decisions or a few years away. That's kind of, my impression is that's kind of rosy glasses looking at it saying, if we could have an alternative to China on the world stage, it could possibly be India down the road, right? Like, that's not immediate.
I mean, Apple moved there.
Did they? They moved their. Oh yeah, and then we tariffed them anyways.
Yeah, they moved some of their manufacturing. I think they were getting in the process of moving, like the high tech stuff to India or whatever.
Yeah, I got you.
But then they got tariffed anyways. But no, I think you're right. The Indian problem though has been one for a while. What did Henry Kissinger say about the Indian Prime Minister? Did he say he was He called him. He called him a pussy. He called him something. It was on one of the calls to Nixon, but he was going on a rampage about him. So this is nothing new. But continue, please.
Yeah, so big picture, I like the direction. I think it's a good move. I think it ends up being more headlines than anything. I don't know that it actually has a lot of teeth to it. And at the same time, this came out, Witkoff was over in Moscow meeting with Putin, and what came out of that was the possibility of a Trump-Putin meeting. Some people sprinkled in that there might be Zelensky as well. Russia immediately came out and said absolutely not. And then there's this. But what happened before? I don't want to get into the details of that, because what happened after Witkoff went to Moscow is all of the conversation shifted to the talks. Where are they going to meet? What are they going to talk about? Is Zelensky going to be there? Are there preconditions? Who invited who? All of that has taken over the conversation when, instead of, like, today is the deadline. Trump said, end the war by today, or we're going to start hammering you guys with more sanctions, maybe more weapons into Ukraine. That's off the table. We're not talking about that anymore. We're talking about, where will Putin and Trump actually meet? I think it's a stalling tactic by Putin, and I don't know that they're actually going to meet at all. Maybe they will. If they do, I'll tell you what, if they meet right now, if they decide, like, okay, it's a good time, they have already set the conditions with State Departments and foreign ministries in all countries, saying the conditions aren't set at the lower level to make a decision feasible at the higher level. As in, like, the background work hasn't been done. The grunt work hasn't been done. So Putin and Trump can meet. There's nothing for them to decide upon at this point, unilaterally, or bilaterally. So I don't know. I think we're just seeing another stalling tactic on that front.
It kind of like earlier this week I sent you a voice memo and I said the key to winning over the president is to call him on the phone, right?
Yeah.
And I said, notice Claudia Scheinbaum, Ursula, they pick up the phone, they call him all the time, sometimes twice, 3 times a week, and they say, hello, Donald, and he talks to him for an hour, and then what do you know? Mexico doesn't have tariffs, the EU, the tariffs are delayed, they get a trade deal, yada, 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 right? And then what I said, Modi needs to get on the phone with Trump ASAP if he doesn't want these tariffs, and Putin needs to get on the phone. And Putin got on the phone with Trump, and now now the deadline's over and we're back to talks. They need to, and I'm certain this will fall apart again, as it always does, right? Because Putin can't be trusted. But they need to manage the phone there in the White House, like disconnect it from Moscow or something. Because I feel like this roller coaster of, all right, we're really going to hammer him now. JK, he called. Now we're going to have talks. It never works. And I'll be surprised if the 3 of them meet. I know they said next week, but then, as you said, Marco Rubio walked it back. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think happens here?
This feels like having a friend that is in an abusive relationship, and all of their friends are like, yo, this Putin guy's bad. He's going to lie to you. He's lied to everyone in the past. He's just going to he's not changing. And Trump is thinking, like, no. This time is different. We have a different thing. You don't understand. It's not what you all think. And finally we convince him, like, great. Do not trust this guy. We got to go all in. We got to address this in a different manner. Thank you, President Trump, for listening. And then Putin says something nice, and Trump's like, I think we ought to give him another chance. I think this time is different. And it is so exhausting, and you can see why in those relationships or addiction or whatever, people, it wears down the family and they move on. Like, I can't try anymore. I'm so tired of this. That's what it feels like, is every time Putin just raises his hand, Trump's like, you know what? I think we can do this.
President Olivia Rodrigo. That's what it is. President Olivia Rodrigo. Yeah. I think you're right. Every time, Trump's, I'm going to go no contact with him. And then he's talking to him again. He's going over to his house. Stop. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Lindsey Graham must be beating his head up against the wall right now. Because, I mean, he finally, we finally did it. I got what I wanted. Nope. No kielbasa. Not at all.
It's interesting to see Lindsey Graham is Trump's biggest cheerleader anytime Trump does something related to Russia and Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see, to be blunt, like grown men in powerful positions just kind of not groveling, but like throwing all self-respect out the window and just and it's not just Lindsey Graham. We see it with a lot of politicians, but I've talked about his in videos this week where like Trump makes a little bit of a shift towards being aggressive on Putin, and Lindsey Graham is out there just cheerleading left and right. It's a weird thing to see. Like in any other context, if this was a sporting event, we'd be like, hey, weirdo, dial it back. That is super awkward. Like, stop it. But somehow with politics, we're like, yeah, this is good. We've got Lindsey Graham on board. It's so odd.
He is like my dad when I was a teenager, and you like start making the steps towards like being a responsible adult, and they like praise you like crazy, like, oh, I can't believe you're so responsible. You like took your car to the car wash. It's kind of like that, where they're like trying to instill it upon you. He's like trying to gentle parent Trump, and it just doesn't. It is clearly not working.
Let me look at some of these statements he made this week.
Yeah, if you could read them to us.
Well done, Mr. President. I believe you, above all others, possess the ability to end this war justly and in a fashion that prevents future conflict.
They're writing to him like he's George Washington. Like, this feels like a letter like the Continental Congress would send to General Washington as he's starving to death at Valley Forge.
Let's see. President Trump... wait, where is it? I lost it all. President Trump's decision to go after countries that prop up Putin's war machine by buying cheap Russian oil is a game changer. These countries are about to pay a long overdue and heavy price. It's so performative. And, like, game changer, that's what we're going with? And I'm picking on Lindsey or Senator Graham, because he's kind of over the top recently with a lot of this stuff, but I'm sure it happens with every issue in politics, right?
No, this is a distinctly Trump thing.
But with other issues, like I'm looking at specifically Ukraine here, but I'm sure it's the same with
without a doubt.
Really? Hold on, though. You're saying it's exclusively Trump, but you're telling me when Obama would roll something big out, there weren't people like, you're the greatest, this is the best thing in the history of mankind?
So
I feel like that had to have been there.
I was young for most of Obama. I graduated high school during his last year, so I can't exactly recall. I'm sure maybe in 2009, 2010 maybe. Mm-hmm. But
internet was different at that point too.
Yeah, internet was different.
Like these would not have been official statements from a press office.
No,
they fit at Twitter. Yeah,
you would be hard pressed to find a senator who would talk like that. Okay. But I mean, I'm not saying they didn't act like he walked on water, but like this level of like Kim Jong-unification is new. Yeah.
Well, should we shift over to Gaza?
Yeah.
Israel?
Yes. Everyone's
nothing
favorite
good there.
Yeah.
The debate continues around starvation and food access is kind of where most of the conversation has gone. And every day there's new allegations of this is fake or this is exaggerated or this is a lie or whatever. And it is, my gut says that a lot of people around the world are just losing interest because it's exhausting. And I don't mean for that to come across cold, because there's a lot of people in harm's way and there's a lot at stake here and there's people dying every day. But I kind of get the vibe that people are just tired of it. But anyways, I'll move on from speaking for the world population there.
The voice of the world, yeah.
The voice of the world,
the pulse of the people, yeah.
If we're getting rid of Radio Free Europe, then somebody's got to step up and speak on behalf of entire.
That's us. We should broadcast this podcast to all of Europe.
All right, maybe that's where we'll put our winnings. Is a private satellite. We can just direct feed into North Korea and Iran.
That's. Can you imagine?
That's how we'll get our tips.
Why do all these oppressed people all these oppressed people have a mixture between measured military thoughts and like the edgiest things you've ever heard before in your life?
Yeah. The CPM rate would be awful on YouTube. They'd be like, we were looking for an American audience, but Sub-Saharan Africa and North Korea logging in big time.
Yes.
All right, so overnight they had this marathon session where Netanyahu's been floating the idea of a full occupation of Gaza, and that appears to be what they landed on. There's some mixed language right now. It sounds like they're going for Gaza City, which is the largest urban center in all of Gaza, and full occupation there. So it did seem like we were kind of reaching a tipping point. And while this is a pretty aggressive move by Israel, I don't know that anybody should be surprised by it, because what else were they going to do in terms of like you might have opinions on what they should do or shouldn't do, but if you look at how everything has been phrased to this point and how it's kind of set up, there is no indication that Israel is going to say, son of a bitch, all right, we're out. Everything was leaning more towards an increase in military op tempo, and look like that's where it's going. Does look like the military pushed back a fair amount. That was stirring a little bit of controversy. I can't tell if that got disproportionate media coverage or not. That should happen in a healthy country. You would expect different opinions and to go back and forth. And when it all is said and done, you have the military that's, at least in the United States, responsible or reports to a civilian lead, and you say, got it. We provided our input. We think this is a better strategy than that, but this was the decision made, so we're going with it. I think in the next couple of days, it sounds like the Israeli Defense Forces are going to be putting into action that further movement into Gaza City.
It's interesting. What is the point of the occupation?
Well, Netanyahu put out a list. Or the Prime Minister's office put out a list, let me pull this up here, explaining kind of the goals of this next phase.
Germany cut off weapon shipments today to them.
Yeah, not everyone is super happy about this. So he says the IDF will prepare and take control of the city of Gaza while providing humanitarian aid to the civilian population outside the combat zone. 5 principles to end the war: disarm Hamas, return all hostages, demilitarize the Gaza Strip, Israeli security control over the Gaza Strip, and the existence of an alternative civilian government that is neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority. So pretty much, the same as the initial war aims, with the addition of Israeli security control over the Gaza Strip. And they got a little more detailed on saying the actual demilitarization and it has to be a new authority. But, part of the issue here is, what have you been trying to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. It seems like everyone's pretty upset with it. You know who's not upset about it, though? You remember this group of people last year? They were camping on campuses. They were having protests. They were telling me, they were acting like I was practically turning on the switch in a gas chamber if I voted for Kamala Harris. All of a sudden, these people are completely silent. You don't see them anywhere now. They're nowhere to be found. But last year, they were everywhere. And now they've completely abandoned Palestine, so shame on them. I don't mean to be vindictive, but it was the first thing that came to my mind was those people who, now that bad things were happening then, but now that it's gotten even worse, they're nowhere to be found. So shame on them.
Look, I think people are losing interest again. Whether you think this is how it shouldn't be, and I understand when you're in the middle of one of these conflicts or closely tied to it, it seems ridiculous that something could be more important to anybody on any scale. But that's just what we do, right? We stopped talking about Iraq and Afghanistan when we still had troops in harm's way getting killed on a daily basis.
Yep.
We just move on, and I'm sure there's a lot of different factors here, but one of them is at that time, there were just a lot more people that were focused on this conflict. And I think that number has gone down over time, not up.
I would agree. And so what do you see coming out of this occupation? Do you think they're going to, something good is going to come out of it? Do you think this is going to be a land grab? They're going to move all the Palestinians out of Gaza? Do you see them administering humanitarian aid, making the situation better? What do you perceive happening here?
I've had a hard time connecting military objectives to political instates so far in this. The IDF is pretty good at clearing out tunnels, pretty good at going on raids into contested territory, but the clearing and securing areas to bring back hostages and completely eliminate Hamas, we don't really have any evidence that that's in the cards right now. There have been cases where the IDF has gotten near hostages and the hostages have been executed. So in turn, this most recent iteration of offensive operations called Gideon's Chariot, the IDF primarily only operated in areas they did not believe hostages to be located in. They were destroying Hamas infrastructure. They were trying to avoid, or at least this is according to some reporting from Manny Fabian over at Times of Israel, they weren't going into areas where they thought there might be hostages because that could trigger Hamas to execute the hostages. Mm-hmm. So, like, how do you resolve that problem right now? They're going to go in. They're just going to go in, I guess, right? Like, that hasn't been resolved. So, I don't know, man. It feels very much like a forever war type situation. It's not, there's always a lot of statistics thrown around in a counterinsurgency type operation like this, where you say for every one civilian you kill, you create 10 fighters, right? You get the families to turn against you. I don't know what that number would be in Gaza. It's a different situation than a lot of the fights we had, but you can't discount that. The longer this goes on, there's more people, some people, that are going to be more inclined to join Hamas or at least not like Israel. It's possible at the same time you have more and more people, and we are seeing a bit of this, turning against Hamas. What do you got, Ben?
I have a question. So I don't doubt that you are creating more Hamas members with an extended occupation. My question, I think, is we were told the same thing about the war on terror, but it was I would argue it was a resounding success, right? Al-Qaeda's basically gone. ISIS is kind of pushed to random parts of Syria and the Sahel and Africa. It doesn't seem like it necessarily created more terrorists, right? At least, like, in the long term. So, do you think that kind of breaks the narrative that occupation of Gaza creates more Hamas, or do you think it's a different situation?
I don't know that it breaks the narrative. And for the whole saying GWAT was successful, I would say the overall war on terror was successful, just to, not to get too far down the rabbit hole here, but if we pull out our nation-building efforts in Iraq and Afghanistan, which is not really supposed to be part of the global war on terror. Afghanistan, to a point, for like the first 2 or 3 years. But after like 2004, we were almost exclusively fighting the Taliban, not Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
But the fight going against transnational terrorist organizations has largely been successful. It's not over, but the fact that they haven't been able to carry out large-scale attacks like 9/11 since 9/11, by and large, is a testament to how that went. I think it would take a certain circumstance for one civilian killed to result in 10 new terrorists.
Right.
So I don't think it's that number, but it's more that they keep coming. So maybe it's for every 5 people killed, there's 2 new pop up. I guess the best way to put it is there's not a finite number of Hamas members in Gaza. There are new ones coming into their ranks. What that ratio is, I have no idea. But it's something to think about, right? If you're in their shoes, if you're in the shoes of a Palestinian in Gaza, needing food, maybe your home's been destroyed, or at the very least you're, displaced from the place you want to live. Where is that line between blaming Israel versus blaming Hamas? And I feel like that's probably very situational.
I would agree. Why do you think that, not to get too deep into the weeds, that the conventional knowledge that one death equals 10 more terrorists is not accurate? And I know you said like 5-2, but I mean, if you do the math on that, right, that is, these groups should be like millions of people strong. Why do you think the conventional wisdom just doesn't work there? Like, why do you think it's wrong?
In Gaza?
Gaza, global war on terror, both. Because it strikes me that it is wrong.
Yeah, I think we spend too much time on the numbers, and more the idea is that, say Al Qaeda had 1,000 members, and we killed 1,000 of them. That doesn't mean that Al Qaeda is gone, because some of their children are now going to be upset that we killed their dad, and they don't care why we killed their dad. They just want revenge.
Right.
And maybe that's one of their kids, maybe it's 5 of their kids, maybe it's a cousin, maybe it's a neighbor. In that 1,000 that we killed, let's say there were 100 civilian casualties. Maybe those family members get upset. And so the idea isn't necessarily that – I think the ratio there would be a tough thing to dial in, because we tend to not have a very good census of people raising their hand saying, I joined Al-Qaeda because of this strike. Other than that, I'd have been on the straight and narrow. But it's more that concept that you can't – so like even if you kill a Islamic State leader – in a safe house in Syria, and he is by himself, his son in Yemen might get pissed off by that and decide to join Islamic State to back him up. So it's not collateral damage. Like, that's the kind of thing you cannot measure. And I would argue that it is happening to some degree because these groups still exist.
Right.
We've dropped enough bombs and fired enough missiles to have probably destroyed all of Al-Qaeda and Islamic State a few times over, but they're still out there. So they are repopulating.
Okay, interesting. That answers my question.
All right.
So
Gaza, yeah, we'll see what happens with Gaza. It sounds like probably an increase in military operations here in the next couple days. And you mentioned it, Germany is, I think, cutting off arms exports to Israel. We've seen the UK come out in objection. Of course, the United Nations objecting. The United States, kind of the big one here, seems to just like, whatever you want to do, Netanyahu, you do your thing, we're here. We seem entirely hands-off. Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. Completely, it seems like the U.S. has just gone hands-off on this one.
That's crazy.
I should mention, when I say hands-off, like, we know what that means. That means that Israel can do whatever they want. So, like, that is a decision, but from what I'm seeing from the State Department, DOD, and the White House, is that we're just not, we just like, whatever.
It's, Trump is not under the same domestic pressures that Biden was to be hands-on, so there's really no pressure for him to get involved. In fact, I think the pressure is for him to go hands-off, So, we're going to keep selling. Eventually, though, you think there comes a point where we're like, no, stop? Or do you think we go to the very end?
I think you're kind of right that Trump is just going hands-off on this one. It does seem like there's been a shift in the United States to more people being upset with Israel on the right side of the aisle. I don't know if that's enough to be cold and calculated about this. Is it going to affect future elections? I don't know yet.
The conversations on the left, and I think this is the progressive left. I don't think it's mainstream Democrats necessarily, but they are of the belief that Gaza will be a big part of the 2028 primary for president. They're also a big belief that taking money from AIPAC will be a big part of that. I think this will be ancient history by then. I think there are no electoral consequences. I also think you're right. People seem to be getting more upset with what's going on, but I also think people just don't really care, ultimately, in a way that dictates their belief in who should govern or how they should govern, right? I guess outside of this past November, so maybe I'm wrong.
It's also now crossed administrations, which I think is always a challenge. So if somebody were to stand up and say, this is going to be my key issue, I'm going to vote Democrat because the Republicans allowed the war to go on. It's like, you can say, well, the Democrats were letting the war go on. Like, they were in office when this all started, and there was no real move to curb Israel at all. So it reminds me a little bit of that. You were talking about the people protesting against how Harris and Biden were treating the war, and now it looks like Trump is even more hands-off. Just do whatever you want, Israel. I don't know that makes it a defining issue because there's no other option that's clearly better for some people, right?
I would agree. Yeah, I don't really know how it's going to go. I know that, I guess in terms of long-term voting consequences, I mean, Michigan has a very large Muslim population. And there's like the belief that, you know, they could sway elections one way or the other. But New York also has a lot of Jewish people, you know. But my understanding is the exit polls showed that most of them voted for Zohran Mamdani. So I don't know what the electoral consequences will be. It'll be interesting. I guess we won't know until 2026, right?
Also, foreign policy rarely plays a major role at baseline. So
Yeah.
I think we'd have to see a lot more happen here, probably in the immediate lead up to the election, for it to matter at all.
Yeah, I fully agree. Yeah, I don't think most Americans care about the U.S. foreign policies. I also don't think most Americans are aware. I still like see comments on videos we make where people are like, "The Brits are our friends. I thought we fought them in a war. I thought we hated them." And I was like, man, whoever unfroze this colonist, get him back in the chamber, man. Okay.
I saw something on the internet, which is always a great way to start a conversation, a couple days ago, where it said, "Why do the Brits speak English, an American language, instead of a European language?" And it just sent some British folks off the rails, and I thought it was hilarious.
That is pretty funny. Have you seen the Ricky Gervais bit where he talks about arguing with an editor from one of his books about the correct spelling of a word? I think it was like favorite, where Ricky spelling of a U and the American editor spelling of it and just a no. And Ricky's like, well, it's English and I'm English, so we created the language, so it's OU. And I just think that's like the funniest way to view it. It's like, yeah, we made the language, we spell it right. And I was like,
there you go.
Fair enough. So you want to take some questions?
I want to hear what's going on in Venezuela first.
Okay, so I don't really...
Can you bring me up to speed there?
So I don't really know much. I just know we have a warrant out for Maduro because they say he is running these criminal drug trafficking gangs that are they claim are in the United States or something. They claim every person they arrest is part of an MS-13 gang. I don't think that's true, but apparently there are like legitimate ties between Maduro and some of these gangs, but not enough to like... enough that courts are looking at it and going, I don't know, chief. You know, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But this Maduro thing is kind of like... opposition to Maduro is like an ancient Republican belief, right? Like the beef with Venezuela goes way back, but Republicans have never really liked Maduro. And while MAGA doesn't necessarily have an issue with them, it's kind of like Old Lang Syne, you know? Where like Scottish people all around the English-speaking world, they don't know why they sing Old Lang Syne. It's just always been there. And that's kind of like the opposition to Maduro. It's like, well, we don't, you know, he is a dictator. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where that's happening, and so they're going to try. You know, they want to put the new guy in. We know during the Biden administration they like weren't trying to normalize with him, but they lifted sanctions so they could export their oil to stabilize the oil markets. You know, in order to not bankrupt Europe and also keep stuff moving around the globe because it's a global commodity, so the price is determined. But, you know, Trump kind of backtracked on that. I believe they took away the Exxon contract they had made with Venezuela. We'll see. And I think part of the deal was they had to have a fair election, and then they had the election, it wasn't fair. So there was that. They were also at one point, weren't they flirting with invading Guyana?
There was a border dispute there, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't seem like anything ever came of that, though, right? Because it's all the border they share is all rainforest and like mountains, and so
yeah, that died down, fortunately. I guess my question is like, not a good dude,
no,
but arrest warrant or bounty for his arrest means that we're going to arrest him. What is the plan to arrest a president of a country? Like, we arrested Saddam. Is that...
But he was charged in Iraq, so I don't really know.
I don't think he's coming to the United States anytime soon. So, like, either it's, like, complete just bluff to say we don't like this guy. I guess I don't know what the next part here is. Like,
So
if you get the tip when they hear our news, right, and they're like,
yeah.
Ben called in on behalf of Unclassified. It's time to go roll this boy up. What are they like? Are we going into Venezuela to arrest him? That does not seem like it's in the
No.
cards.
So there are like two things here. So this is what I assume they will do with Maduro. So El Chapo, do you remember him?
Yeah.
He was like this big Mexican drug cartel guy. Gets arrested in Mexico and then gets extradited to the United States to face drug charges in Chicago for drug trafficking and a bunch of other things. I assume that is what they will do with Maduro, is he will be extradited. If they get him, he'll be extradited to the United States and face drug trafficking and human trafficking or whatever charges in the U.S., and that's kind of like how they'll handle him. In terms of how they're going to get him, they're not going to go into Venezuela and arrest him, but rather I think it's kind of a multi-pronged approach. So number one is they can pressure other Latin American states or other countries around the world that where he travels, you have to, if he enters, you have to arrest him. So it kind of isolates Maduro and keeps him in one place.
Yeah.
It also gives the United States more negotiating power when it comes to Venezuela, if there ever is anything to negotiate over. And if you're trying to cut a deal with Venezuela, you can say, well, we'll drop the bounty on you in exchange for whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. So it's not necessary. I don't think they're going to arrest Maduro. They're not going to send Navy SEALs in to get him. At least I don't think so. But it is kind of like, they had the bounty out for him, and kind of like the ICU, not the ICU, the ICC with Putin and Netanyahu. It's like, will they arrest you? I don't know, but it kind of keeps you from traveling anywhere. And so Maduro's kind of limited now to Russia, China. Also, the bounty out for his arrest may prohibit his ability to fly places, right? Like Brazil may, well, now the U.S. and Brazil are having a bit of a falling out, but Mexico might be less willing to allow him to use their airspace for, I don't know why he would be in their airspace, but you get my point. Same with Europe. So it's kind of like isolating him. I don't know what the end game is there. Obviously the belief is you arrest him and then democracy can come back to Venezuela, but I don't know how successful that would be.
All right. Okay.
All right, so questions?
Let's do it, yeah.
This is from Rope Burns Russell. He says, I would really like a rundown of Preston's military career. No, he's West Point in artillery, but he smells like intelligence. Fess up, Preston. You were a spook, weren't you?
Never a spook. Pretty boring career. West Point, started there in 2005, commissioned in 2009, field artillery. Fort Sill for the basic officer course and artillery training for about 8-9 months. I got to Fort Campbell in spring of 2010 and deployed right away. So the unit had actually already done their pre-deployment train up. So I'd been there for about 40 days, I think, when I didn't even unpack most of my stuff, which was kind of nice, and went straight to Afghanistan. We were in southern Afghanistan, Zari district. I was part of Dog Company 2502 Infantry. I was the fire support officer, so I was the artillery officer that called in airstrikes or coordinated airstrikes with the JTACs, and then called in mortar and artillery fire when our boys got shot at. Was down there for 12 months during the surge, 2010 to 2011. Lived at some little dirty strong points out there, houses that we'd taken over during some clearance operations. Came back home, redeployed as they call it, was home for about 10 months, and then went back over to Afghanistan, this time as a first lieutenant instead of a second lieutenant. And I was an advisor as a battalion fire support officer, so moved up, same type of job, just one level up. And we helped the Afghans set up their artillery systems in a portion of the east called N2KL, so Nangarhar, Nuristan, Logman, and Kunar provinces. And we helped them. We did the training for them to learn how to fire the D-30 howitzers and their fire support, so learning how to call for fire, which they didn't do. They just direct fired those things into the side of mountains whenever they wanted. Funny enough, the concept, you take this for granted, but a challenge we had with the Afghans was getting them to understand that you could shoot over a hill and hit something. Like, there was something, we couldn't make that connection. We call it indirect fire.
Right.
Like something 30 kilometers away can fire and hit something here, and you can't see it. But somebody on the radio will tell you shift left, shift right, up, down, whatever it might be. Could not get that concept across. Like,
Really?
They couldn't see the round go boom. Yeah, and not across the board, but for most of them. So they would just take the howitzer and lower it and shoot it at mountain passes near their outpost. But anyways, that was a shorter one.
Is that kind of like, if you fire this at, is it more effective firing at like direct shot? I know like indirect fire aside, but if they're on the mountain there and you fire it straight at them, is that more effective than dropping it down on them?
Not really. I mean, it depends on the type of round. So artillery's got a bunch of different stuff. We have airburst munitions that fire like a shotgun pattern down.
Okay,
so
that'd be useless.
that can shred guys, called variable time fuse. It's harder to hit things direct fire with artillery because they're not meant to do that. Tanks are, but artillery is not. So it's harder to hit the target that way in a lot of cases. And generally, direct fire is only used as like a, oh my God, we're about to be overrun.
Right.
So for the most part, a top-down approach for artillery is best. But nonetheless, Afghans doing it the Afghan way.
We'll just blow a hole
came
through the
back.
mountain. Yeah. Look at them.
Those mountains have taken some beatings, man. They're still there. Came back and got out of the military at the 5-year mark. Pen captain, got out at 5 years. Then went back into the National Guard because I missed it when I was down in Texas. So I had a 3-year break in service in the IRR, so kind of individual ready reserve where you don't drill or anything. Went back in Texas to a HIMARS unit and ended up as a battery commander for Punisher Battery, 4th Battalion, 133 Artillery, down in Texas. Then when we moved to Tennessee, I left that unit and joined a reserve unit up here, and we did training for ROTC cadets and a couple different units, training for ROTC and then kind of OCT, observer, controller, trainer for other reserve units. And about, I don't know, at the start of the year, I decided it was time to get out. So pinned major about 2 years ago, and then left entirely in, I think, April or May. So wrapped up the service. Nothing too awful sexy or fancy. 101st Airborne in Afghanistan is kind of my big thing. That was fun.
Did you jump out?
So 101st is not airborne anymore. It's part of the name. They do air assault, which is rappelling out of helicopters. It's kind of their primary thing. I did go to airborne school while at West Point, though, so that's just 5 jumps. You get your wings and move on.
Is it scary? When you jump out for the first time, do you think you're going to die?
Yeah.
Okay. How much
it's
preparation?
It's cool to say you did it. I did not. I would not go back to an airborne unit. Not. Yeah.
That's crazy. So how do you do wind tunnel training before jumping, or is it just like, here's how you pull the chute?
So, well, you don't pull the chute. The military dummy proofs it, so it's a static line. Mm-hmm. So your chute pulls automatically, and a part of the reason for that is you jump at a relatively low altitude, like 1,200 feet, whereas like skydiving is way up there. So this is not skydiving. This is like modified falling out of an airplane, and I mean, the whole purpose of this is to spend as little time in the air as possible. Think about trying to get military forces in via airborne operation. You don't want them in the air. You want them like out of the aircraft, on the ground, super fast.
Yeah.
So when you actually start talking to the airborne units, they're jumping a fair amount lower than 1,200 feet, to where it's like you jump, chute opens, you hit the ground kind of thing.
Not bad.
But the training, it was 3 weeks. It was like a full week of... The school was 3 weeks, a full week of just learning how to fall, like to land and roll correctly. Then it was a week of learning the aspects of jumping out of the plane so you don't get the prop blast and blown back and all of that. And there's like a 30-foot tower you jump out of that has like a modified kind of pull of the parachute.
When you say a static line, how does that work? Is it like connected to the plane?
Yep. There's a line running through the middle of the airplane, and you clip on the cord to your parachute. So you have your main chute on your back. You have a backup chute up front, and the main chute on your back, you have a little cord coming over with a clip. You clip that in to a hard line inside the airplane. and I don't know, say it's 20 feet or something. So when you jump out, that automatically pulls the chute. So you jump out, you look down and go 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. I think it's 3 seconds, and you look up and the chute should have already opened.
Wow. And if it doesn't, you have your manual?
Reserve, yeah.
Do you, I've heard some people do not like the song Blood on the Risers. Are you a fan?
I don't really care.
So for those
I did have a mishap at airborne school.
Really? What happened?
Yeah. So you're jumping out of both sides of the plane, and one of the challenges there is, and at airborne school they make it very, very simple. I want to stress this: like, you barely have any gear on. You're doing it. I think we did all daytime jumps. When you get to an actual airborne unit, you've got 100+ pounds of gear jumping at night at low altitude. So like it's very, very different. Yeah. I went out one side, other guy went out the other side, and when you're coming behind the plane, then we swung together.
Oh.
And my chute, I don't remember which way it was, but we crossed like this to where one chute was under the other. And either I went into his risers or he went into mine. I will take full responsibility whichever way it went, because we were all trying to figure it out. What happens then is the bottom chute steals the air from the top chute. So the top chute collapses, and that person falls fast.
Jesus.
And then it catches, and then it collapses the air from the other chute, and that falls fast. So it's called a yo-yo, and you yo-yo back and forth, which means you go to the ground pretty fast.
Yeah.
And what you're supposed to do in that situation is grab a hold of the other person and let one chute go, like just let the one chute stay open, and then you fall together under that one parachute. So you have to catch your buddy midair.
And that happened to you?
Yeah, we did that. The training is good enough to be able to do that without really thinking about it. I think that was jump number 3. And we both hit the ground, little kind of like a light sprained ankle, but I mean, I could still walk on it, just kind of tender.
When you do that, do you get yelled at, or are they just like, well, you didn't die, so good job?
Yeah. There's a lot worse things that happen. Like people refusing to jump, right? That's an issue. Did not happen in my class, but that's a major issue. People freeze when they're up there. There's a lot of different things that can go wrong. So that one, I think the instructors like laughed at us and said, get back on the bus.
Nice. All right. So our second question is from Erez Wolf. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Considering the innovative drone marketplace, the new drones, UGVs, formations, and the rise of a new generation of field commanders like Magyar and Veres, along with many others, do you think Ukraine is about to have the most advanced military in the world and possibly the first true 21st century military? I don't necessarily mean in terms of firepower or elite tech like the F-35 or F-22, but in terms of command and control, logistics, and personnel deployment on the battlefield, and so on.
Yes and no. In this type of war, yes. Like if any NATO country was forced to fight in the same way that Ukraine is fighting right now, we would not do it as well as Ukraine is. Little things like where to set up their command posts and how to maintain communications at the front, not to mention all of the techniques and tactics with drones. Like the United States military could not fight like Ukraine is fighting right now in a short period of time. It would take us a while to figure that out. But what we're seeing in Russia and Ukraine is not necessarily modern war. It's a unique look at war. Neither of those two sides was able to achieve air superiority.
That's true.
In fact, there's air denial in much of the airspace. Ukraine is not flying fixed-wing aircraft generally anywhere near the front. They're certainly not flying it into Russia. I don't know the last time Russia flew a bomber or an aircraft into Ukrainian skies. Helicopters nowhere near the front. So it's a very different fight. One of the challenges we run into is we have to prepare for this. Like we get into this fixed position artillery type duel that turns into a drone duel, while also relying on the fact that our strength is our air power.
Yeah.
And being able to achieve air superiority rapidly so we don't get stuck like this. So it's kind of a tough question to answer. In this specific context, Ukraine is 100% a leader across what would be the rest of NATO countries. But I'd probably stop there.
David Burke asks, how many drones per month do you think a war with China will entail for both sides? If Ukraine and Russia are both producing thousands with much smaller economies, is it safe to say that we'll see a World War II level of production of tanks and aircraft in the war of China with drones instead of tanks and aircraft?
It seems like that's the direction we're headed in, but we also have to remember, again, going back to the last question, the requirement for this war is that Russia and Ukraine are using a lot of small drones, and all things considered, relatively inexpensive drones. That may or may not be the way the war with China is fought. In fact, if we're trying to launch strikes against China, we have to be relatively close, which means we're probably looking at more long-range standoff munitions, maybe more stealth capabilities. It seems like that's the direction we're going. Something tells me that these low-cost, short-range munitions that we're seeing right now won't be the thing with China. It'll be something more advanced than this.
Nick Davis asks, do you think America and its allies are doing enough R&D to counter drones? Part 2, do you think we are ready for this kind of warfare with Russia and China if we went to war today?
I don't know the extent of the R&D in the United States. It's hard for me to answer. My gut says no, just because we've got a live testing ground in Ukraine right now, and those guys are using nets and shotguns. And if that's the current defense against some of these drones, it makes me, I'm sure people are looking into it, but I don't think we have anything that we can field in mass quite yet. And in talking with some folks in the military, been fortunate to have some briefings kind of presenting them what we're seeing come out of Ukraine, they're still a little bit behind in understanding the threat. So the development isn't there. The weapon systems aren't there. Trying to explain that there are fiber optic drones that fly behind enemy lines and park on the side of the road waiting for a Ukrainian vehicle to come by, at which point they start up and fly low, kind of like a nap of the earth, into the side of the moving vehicle. They just okay, so what do you do with that? Shotguns. We're still learning.
Is there any, this is my own question, we have more, but I do have, it kind of tags off of that. Are there any technologies? So I'm of the thought that maybe drones will end up being not that big of a deal in the future. That will somehow create a very novel counter to them and they'll go away. Is there anything like that in military history where everyone thought this is the future, this is going to be a big deal, and then it just goes away and it's not really that big of a deal? Are chemical weapons one of them? Kind of because we all legislated them away. People tend not to use. Well, I guess that's not true. People do still use them.
You could almost say nuclear weapons in a sense, right?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
I don't know that it fits that definition exactly, but there's kind of been this general agreement that we just won't use nuclear weapons. And but for years and years, we prepared for war with nuclear weapons, not just missiles, but artillery shells with nuclear. We had nuclear landmines ready to be used for when the Soviets marched west. So that was going to be, the entire war was going to be around nuclear weapons, and that didn't play out. I'd have to think about that, though. That's an interesting question.
Have you ever seen the footage, the archive footage of them testing whether or not soldiers can march into an area after a nuclear bomb goes off?
I think so, yeah.
It's crazy. They you see this nuclear bomb go off, I don't know how far away. And
then you assault through.
Yeah, and then the soldiers come out of the trenches and walk towards it, and you're like, oh man, I'd hate to be a test dummy for that one. That's Adam Young asks, did you guys ever expect to be playing a direct role in global events between the reporting on multiple undercover conflicts / domestic issues and fundraising for Ukrainian units? Y'all are making an impact on how things play out, much more than the average person at least. So the fundraising that Preston does aside, this is a very generous interpretation of what we do, here every Friday.
Shaping foreign policy.
Yes, but Preston, you are a very successful fundraiser. You're the booster, Ukrainian booster club here. So did you ever expect that you'd be raising money to kill Russians?
No, this has been a really weird and unique aspect of this fight. It's interesting. I've always enjoyed international relations, foreign affairs. The reason I wanted to get into the field in the first place is because it changes day to day. I didn't expect it to be changing this much day to day, and it would be a part of my job. So very fortunate in that sense to be able to do something I enjoy. But no, if I'm being honest, I actually try to not think about any. When I find out that somebody watches the videos or listens to the podcast, it always makes me more self-conscious than when I just pretend like nobody does at all. So I had somebody in Ukraine recently send me a picture of somebody watching one of my videos about Ukraine while he's, in a fighting position in Ukraine. That makes me like, oh my God.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I tend to spend more time just not thinking about that and assuming that it's not happening, and this is just going off into the void. That's kind of my preferred approach.
That is kind of wild to think about, right?
Yeah.
That is pretty crazy. So Jake91T asks, what happened with your competition versus Doug the Pug for Nashville's biggest influencer?
It was rigged.
Mm-hmm.
It was rigged.
Yes.
We have lawsuits coming. The Tennessean was a reputable organization for a long time. They've gone downhill. Fake news. They're fake news now. And, yeah, you'll wait. We have the evidence. It's sitting on my desk right now. And you'll see.
Our lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, is going to get to the bottom of this, okay? He's going to get to the bottom of the stolen election.
I had more votes than anybody's ever seen in any of these contests ever.
And then,
they say it's the best. They said it was the best. They said they'd never seen anything like
it. They tried to steal it from us all the other times, but then they finally succeeded this time. And frankly we did win this election.
Everybody knows what happened here. Everybody knows what happened here.
Everyone knows. And nobody call. I know the Tennessean, they're going to release this footage of Preston saying, I need you to find 11,893 votes. It's fake. It's not real. Don't listen to them. Yeah,
I even wrote him nice birthday letters, thinking that might do it.
Yeah,
with some drawings. It's not doing the trick.
We're having a rally. We're having a rally next year, January 6th. I need all you to come to the Tennessee Capitol, and we're gonna make sure that they count the votes correctly for this competition. Because frankly, we lost. And frankly, look at the people who are voting. Dog people are all. This is why dogs win mayor. People, how funny it would be if a dog won? It's a dog. He doesn't know he won. That's how you know they rigged it. Because you got the dog freaks voting. No offense to Hallie, but
I can't believe we're still talking about this. You're still talking about this?
Yeah,
we shouldn't even be talking about this anymore.
It's all made up. It was all this contest is made up by Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden.
We've got Ukraine, Gaza, Venezuela now, and you're talking about dogs and elections in Tennessee? Come on, fine. If you want to ask that question, you can ask that question, but
I will be suing, frankly, I will be suing the Tennessean for this rigged competition, and they're corrupt, and that's why we got Colbert canceled. That's why we got Colbert off the air.
Way to bring it full circle.
Yes, sir. So anyways, folks, I think we have memberships on our YouTube page now.
Well, we should talk about that before we just start announcing it, because that means something, right?
Oh, does it? Oh, I'm sorry.
You pay money to be a member, and I don't know what they'd be paying for at this point. So I feel like we need to talk through that.
Yeah, so don't subscribe to us because you're not going to get anything. But I don't know why I brought this up on the pod. I was gonna.
Yeah,
we should.
Time it,
I was gonna. They made me fill out a thing earlier. That earlier day I used to fill out something. I never did it because I was too lazy to, and then I just clicked a button. Anyways, folks. So, by the way, before I let everyone go, you guys remember my famous red phone? How I said I wanted to get rid of my cell phone, and I was just gonna have a phone then where people would have to call me if they want to contact me, right? Well, I have ordered a phone. This creator named CatGPT is now selling Bluetooth versions of these, okay? And so then it syncs up to your phone. And so I can set it up to where my phone's still active, and I can get my Twitter notifications. Well, so I guess I just paid for an accessory to talk on the phone with, because it doesn't really disable my phone or do anything. I can still use it. So, but we'll have another red one here. So,
okay. All right.
Sorry, I don't know why everyone needed to know the last two things, but
we're moving on.
Yeah, give us 5 stars, like, comment, subscribe, and let us know what we should talk about next week. And probably Ukraine and Israel. Anyways, folks, later.